space splits the sukkah in half. And if you started with 3 walls, you're only going to be left with 2 walls on each side. That's what the Mishnah stated. The question in the Gemara was, what is the story regarding Nakosh Eschach? If a person places Nakosh Eschach across the whole sukkah, let's say if this is a sukkah, and he placed Nakosh Eschach, and the width of Nakosh Eschach is 4 tfachim in the middle of the sukkah, it's about 12 to 16 inches. So therefore, Rav, the yeshiva, we had a report from the yeshiva of Rav. The report from the yeshiva of Rav that 4 tfachim of Nakosh Eschach, if you have metal poles going across the sukkah, that will split a sukkah in half. That also will separate between the walls and the rest of the sukkah. Therefore, if you have a wall here and a wall there and a wall in the back and no wall over here, and going across the center of the sukkah is Nakosh Eschach, that if it's a significant amount, 4 tfachim, 12 to 16 inches, that will separate that part of the sukkah from this part of the sukkah. It's as if we have 2 structures. That's what we had before in the name of Rav, and we had Rabbah questioning that. And we had in yesterday's Gemara, or the other day's Gemara, we have Rabbah question that point, and Rabbah said no. The only thing that will split a sukkah, if it's not Nakosh Eschach, it has to be 4 amot. Only if it's 4 amot, 7 feet wide of Nakosh Eschach, going across the whole sukkah, that will split the sukkah in half. That was the report we had in the name of Rabbah, who disagreed with the yeshiva of Rav. Now comes the Gemara and says that the way it was reported until now was the way it was reported in one of the cities in the Jewish community. But in a different city of the Jewish community, they had a different report on exactly who said what. So that's what the Gemara is opening up today. We are on 17b2 on the right side. The Gemara says, Besura, in Surah, it's one of the cities in Bavel, Babylon. In Surah, Masni lahashmaisa b'haylishna. In Surah, they had the Gemara, the understanding of the Gemara, the way we had it until now. However, in Nardah, in the city of Nardah, in that yeshiva, they had Matni, they had a different version. They had a different understanding of what Rabbah said and what the people in the yeshiva said. They have the following recording. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Schach pasul, invalid schach, be'emsa posel. If you have schach pasul, if you have not kosher schach, be'emsa, if it's in the middle of the sukkah, posel arba abba. 4 tfachim, if it's 4 tfachim in the middle of the sukkah, it will split the sukkah in half. Min hatzad, if the nakosher schach is on the side, adjacent to the wall of the sukkah, then we say the rule that the wall turns, the wall curves. So if you have the schach not kosher here, schach kosher here, and then you have the wall here, we say that the wall and the schach come together, and then it's as if the wall is right over here, adjacent to the kosher schach. So if we have not kosher schach over here, let's say your ceiling caved in, and you place schach in the middle of your ceiling, but the whole ceiling didn't cave in. The edges, the perimeter remain, which is not kosher schach. Since it's close to the wall, we have a rule that up to 4 amot of not kosher schach, we could say as if this wall that's over here comes together with this schach and they all join together and the wall curves. So the wall moved from here to over here. But that's only up to until 4 amot. Once, if the distance of the not kosher schach adjacent to the wall is 4 amot or more, the wall doesn't turn. And then you would not be able to use this wall to connect it to the schach. That's what Shmuel says. Shmuel says, Minatzad posel be'arba amot. It would need to have 4 amot of not kosher schach on the edges of on the perimeter of the ceiling to be able. If it's 4 amot, then it would invalidate. Then it would split the sukkah in half. Then you can't connect the wall to the schach. However, Rav Amar, in this reading, Rav says, Bein ben atzad, bein ben ha'epsa, baruch of arba'am. Rav says, whether it's on the side or whether it's in the middle, he says the only amount of space that will split a sukkah in half is 4 amot of not kosher schach. If you have in the middle of your sukkah 4 tfachim of not kosher schach, 12 to 16 inches, 20 inches not kosher schach wide, it doesn't, to him, that space you can't sit under, but it doesn't cut the structure in half. We don't look at a sukkah that has not kosher schach in the center that's 4 tfachim wide of not kosher schach, that it separates the structure into 2 sukkot, and now you look at, now you have to see how many walls you have left on each side. We don't look at that. And therefore, if you started with 3 walls and you have not kosher schach, 4 tfachim running all across the center of the sukkah, it's considered 1 sukkah. And you can count, and you still have 3 walls, as long as you have total of 7 tfachim of kosher schach, you would be good. You won't look at it as 2 structures, and that's what this is the reading of the new text in the city of Nahardo. So now the Gemara is going to challenge Shmuel's position. So Shmuel was the one who distinguishes between the side and the middle. He says if you're in the middle of a sukkah, Shmuel says the middle of the sukkah will 4 tfachim will split the sukkah into 2 structures. So the Gemara now challenges Shmuel from the Mishnah earlier. Nan, we learned in a Mishnah. Natan aleha netesh urochav arba tfachim. If you place a board that's 4 tfachim wide, Sheira, we say that the sukkah is kosher. Now we're turning to page 17b3. So if you went ahead and you placed a board that's 4 tfachim wide, even though the Gemara is understanding that board is not kosher schach, because the Mishnah stated earlier you can't sit under that board. That means 4 tefach wide board, it's not kosher schach because it's too wide and it looks like a roofing, and people are going to think if you could sit under a 4 tefach, a 12 to 16 inch board, people will come to think that you could sit under the ceiling of your house, the boards of your house, because that was a standard sized board that people made for a ceiling of the house. And the rabbis wanted to ensure, to protect, that people shouldn't make a mistake and actually think they could sit in the boards of their house as a ceiling. So the rabbi said you can't sit under the board that's 16 inch, that's 4 tfachim wide board. But the Mishnah stated that the sukkah is a kosher sukkah. It does not split the sukkah in half. It doesn't invalidate, it doesn't ruin the sukkah if you would have 3 walls. So now the Gemara is going to have, how do we explain this Mishnah, which clearly states a 4 tefach wide board of not kosher schach doesn't split the sukkah. And Shmuel reported if you have not kosher schach in the middle of the sukkah, it will split the sukkah in half. Jaime, is it clear what the Gemara is going on over here? Okay.
Yeah, the boards are too wide to qualify, and it should not confuse you that if it's that wide, you could probably just sit in your house, so that would create a confusion.
Right. And then the question is, once the board is no good, does that board split the sukkah in half to say like you have 2 structures here? Does that board, if you have a board that's 4 tefachim wide that runs across the whole sukkah, does that create a separation between what's on your right of the board and what's on the left of the board? Morning, Max. And if it will create a separation, then now you have 2 sukkot. If it creates a separation, if you have 2 sukkot, then you have to know, do I have left on each side 3 walls on each side? Right? So that is the discussion here. What would be the size of not kosher schach that runs across the whole sukkah that would split a sukkah in half and to create it into 2 structures? And you have to look at each structure separately. Does each structure meet the requirements of a sukkah, which is a minimum of 3 walls and so on, and 3 walls and the size of 7 and an area that's 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. So we have 2 very different opinions. One opinion is very strict. 4 tefach wide board would split the sukkah in half. That's called enough of a separation that will make it into 2 separate structures. That is the opinion of this Gemara's opinion of Shmuel. But Rav says, according to this version, unless you have 4 amot, 7 feet, which is so much more than 4 tvachim. 4 tvachim is 12 to 16 inches. 7 feet is so much more than that. Unless you have 7 feet of not kosher schach running across the whole sukkah, it's not going to split the sukkah in half. You're going to have 6 feet of not kosher schach running across the sukkah, so that will not be a kosher spot to sit under, but it's still considered one structure. You can still count the walls on the right and the walls on the left. They could join in to the size of a kosher sukkah. But now the Gemara is, so to speak, attacking, if that's the right word, if it's a nice right word to say, attacking the position of Shmuel, because we see from the Mishnah, Max, we are now on 17b3. We're seeing from our Mishnah that the Mishnah clearly states having a 4 tefach board in the middle does not split the sukkah in half. So that's the Gemara's question. So now we learned in the Mishnah, if you place the board, which is a 4 tefach board, even though that board is not kosher to sit under, kashera, the sukkah is still kosher. So Bishlama, the Gemara says, I understand the Rav. The Rav says the only time the sukkah will be split in half if you have 4 amot of not kosher schach running across. Mishum hachik v'shera. If you only have 4 tvachim, that's why the sukkah is good, Mr. Abel, because you only have 4 tvachim. You only have 12 to 16 inches there. You don't have 7 feet of not kosher schach going across the width. Therefore, it's kosher. El Shmuel, but Shmuel the Amar be'emsa barba, that he says if you have 4 tvachim, you have 12 to 16 inches wide of not kosher schach running across the sukkah, splits the sukkah into 2 structures. Amai kshera. Why is the sukkah kosher if you have 4 tvachim? If you have this board running across the whole sukkah, it should split the sukkah in half. That's the Gemara's question. To that, the Gemara answers, you have to understand the case. Mr. Abel always likes to say, case, law, and reason. The Gemara in its question thought that the Mishnah is talking about the middle of the sukkah. You have this board in the middle of the sukkah, this 4 tefach wide board, and the Mishnah states it doesn't have not kosher schach, and the Mishnah states it doesn't cut the sukkah in half. So the Gemara answers this 4 tefach wide board is not in the middle of the sukkah; it's adjacent to the wall of the sukkah. It's at the perimeter of the sukkah. It's right next to the wall. So you have the wall here, and you have the not kosher schach against the wall. So there, the reason why 4 tefach doesn't split the sukkah in half and cut out the wall on the right is because we say dofen akuma. We say that the wall turns, and therefore, if the not kosher schach was from here to here, this wall now comes over here and stands over here, and therefore the wall is still available. As long as you don't have 4 amot of not kosher schach next to the wall, at less than 4 amot, then the wall will turn. If you have 4 amot or more, the wall won't turn. So that's why it doesn't split the sukkah in half, because it's next to the wall. But if this 4 tefachim would be away from the wall, middle of the sukkah, that 4 tefach wall, that 4 tefach schach in the middle would cut the sukkah in half. And that's how Shmuel is going to get out of the apparent contradiction to his opinion, because he's going to say the reason why the 4 tefach board does not split the sukkah, because the 4 tefach board is adjacent to the wall, and therefore the wall is able to curve. But when it's not able to curve, when it's not adjacent to the wall, then the 4 tefach, not kosher schach, would split the sukkah in half. That's how he explains. Comes the Gemara and now brings another point coming up. Tashma, Shnei Shesedinim. We had earlier in the Breita, if you have two linens, a sadin is a linen, a sheet. Now a sheet is not fit for schach. You can't put a sheet as a cover for schach, because a sheet is mekabel tumah. A sheet is subject to contamination, has the ability to become contaminated. A sheet does not grow from the ground. A sheet, I mean, usually a sheet where you're going to get it from whatever other materials. But at the end of the day, it's mekabel tumah. It's susceptible to contamination, and it's not kosher for schach. Now, if you place a sheet, let's say the sheet was not 4 tefachim, the sheet was less than 4 tefachim, so it's considered not kosher schach, but you don't have a significant size. But if you have two sheets, so therefore, if you have put one sheet across the whole sukkah, you put a sheet of 3 tefach or a certain size sheet across the whole sukkah. If it's too small, it won't split the sukkah in half. But if you have two sheets, one sheet going here, and adjacent to that sheet, I put another sheet. So I got now 2 sheets coming together, and the 2 sheets coming together are 2 sheets of not kosher schach. So now I got a width of not kosher schach, which meets, let's say, if you combine the math of the 2 sheets together, it's the width more of 4 tefachim plus. So now I got 4 tefachim wide of not kosher schach, and therefore the Mishnah states that the Brisa says that will invalidate the Sukkah. It says Shnei Sadinim mitztarfim. They will join together, that and it will split the Sukkah in half, and it will invalidate the Sukkah. But Shnei Nisarim, but if you have 2 boards together, because this Gemara is going like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that says he holds that there's no problem. He holds the boards, there's no problem using boards for a sukkah. So either the case is talking about boards, one understanding is specifically boards 3 tefachim wide. There's no problem of using boards because that's not the common board that people use for a ceiling of one's house. The common board is a 4 tefach wide board, but a 3 tefach wide board is not the common board. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says there's no problem using 3 tefach boards for your sukkah. And there's another opinion in the Gemara that says Rabbi Yehuda is talking specifically about, he's talking even a 4 tefach wide board, he's not concerned because he says people won't make the mistake between a sukkah board and a house board. They'll know the fact that I sit under such a board in a sukkah I'm not going to make a mistake. I think I could sit under the ceiling of the boards of my house. So Rabbi Yehuda says, if you have these 2 boards coming together, there's no problem. Because there's no problem using boards for a sukkah. Inherently, Rabbi Yehuda says, boards are kosher schach. The boards originated from the ground. They're flat wood. They're not susceptible to contamination, so there's no problem. Rameya Omer, however, Rameya says, Nitzarim Kisadinim. He says, he holds boards are a problem. He says that boards, we're afraid if you're going to use boards, one opinion is he's afraid of even a 3 tefach wide board, and because there are certain homes use the smaller boards, and certain homes use a minority of homes use a board of 3 tefach wide board, and he's concerned for the minority. The other opinion is that he's specifically talking about a 4 tefach wide board that we're concerned about a 4 tefach wide board. Now the Gemara is going to explain. Bishlama lahachlishna. According to the second approach, the Amar Rav, that Rav said, Bein be'emsad, bein minatzad ba'aba amo. Rav said the only way the sukkah could be split in half, if you have not kosher schach, you need to have 4 amot of not kosher schach. if you don't have 4 amot, if you don't have, which is much more than 4 tfachim, if you don't have 4 amot, it doesn't split the sukkah in half. So if that's the case, so when Rabbi Yehuda says that we join the boards together, Rameya says we join the boards together. Why do we need to join the boards together? Because even though the board, let's say, is a 4 tefach wide board, it's true, a 4 tefach wide board is not kosher schach according to Rameya, but it's not going to invalidate the sukkah, because the only way you can invalidate a sukkah is according to, if you need 4 amot of not kosher schach. So therefore, Rameya says, I could join. You could join board number 1 that's 4 tefach. Here's board number 1 that's 4 tefach wide. Next to it, I put another board 4 tefach wide. Next to it, another 4 tefach wide. All the boards total, they could join all together to create a total of 4 amot, and that would invalidate the sukkah. So you could understand why he needs to join the boards together. Because even though each board is 4 tfachim, but it's not enough to invalidate a sukkah. Because 4 tfachim doesn't split a sukkah. It's not kosher schach, but it doesn't split the sukkah. The only way to split the sukkah if I have a total of at least 4 amot of not kosher schach. So therefore, Rameya says, he says, you know what? The same way you could join sheets that are not kosher schach together to create that magic number, so too you could join boards together to create the magic number that will split the sukkah into 2 structures. My mitzarfin arba amot. It joins together to create that magic number 4 amot. Ella, the Gemara says, lahach lishna de Amar Rav. But according to that version that Rav said, that the emsa, that if you're in the middle of the sukkah, ba'arba, that even if you have 1 board in middle, you have 1 not kosher schach in the middle of a sukkah, that's wide, 4 tefachim, and that goes across the whole sukkah, 4 tefach, 12 to 16 inch wide, not kosher schach, splits the sukkah in half. So what is the case of this braita? What's the case that the braita says that Rameya says you need to join these 4 these boards together? If the Gemara says, hey chidami, the Gemara is trying to figure out what is this case of the braita. There's 2 possibilities of this case. The boards are 4 tefach wide boards or less than 4 tefach wide boards. So the Gemara says it only makes sense that it's a 4 tefach wide board. Why? Because if it has 4 tefachim, and you hold, and this is going to be the question, and you hold 4 tefach wide board is enough to split a sukkah in half, so lama leilis through faith. What do I need to join board number 1 that goes all across the sukkah, which is 4 tefach, with board number 2 to go across the whole sukkah, adjacent to it? You know, if it's true that 4 tefach wide boards is enough to split a sukkah in half, I don't need to join 2 boards together. I have 1 board enough. 1 board that's 4 tefach wide board that goes across the sukkah is enough to split the sukkah. And the fact that it says you need to join the boards together seems to indicate that a 4 tefach wide board by itself is not enough to split a sukkah in half. It's only if you have a total of 4 amot of wide of not kosher schach that will split the sukkah in half. Because the Gemara says either lebu arba, if there's no 4 tefach, if it's not a 4 tefach wide board, so it's a small thing. If it's a small thing, it's like regular bamboo. It should be kosher for schach. If it's less than 4 tefach, the Gemara says kanya bamboo. It's like little sticks. So therefore, it has to be a 4 tefach wide board, and yet you still need, in order to invalidate the sukkah, to cut it in half as 2 structures. You need to join it with other boards, which seems to indicate that 4 tefach wide not kosher schach is not enough to split a sukkah in half. So the Gemara answers the following: no proof. It's not a knockout to Shmuel's opinion. La'olam, the Gemara says, the isku arba tefachim. It has 4 tefachim. And really, so if it has 4, if the board is a 4 tefach wide board, so why do I need to join it? If it's true that a 4 tefach wide not kosher schach would split a sukkah in half, so why do I need to join it? But the Gemara says, where is the board? Is the boards in the center of the sukkah or the boards on the side of the sukkah? So the Gemara wants to say the case is that the boards are on the side adjacent to the wall. So if it's adjacent to the wall, then we know we have a rule called Dofen Akuma. We know we have a rule that the wall turns, but we know the wall will only turn if the schach that's adjacent to the wall is not total of 4 tvachim. If the not kosher schach, which is adjacent to the wall, if here is the not kosher schach, and here is the wall, right? Wall and not kosher schach. If you have ceiling of not kosher that goes 4 amot, we don't say the wall turns. So when he says that it joins together, it joins from the side to create an amount that's 4 amot, and therefore once it's 4 amot, then the wall will be disconnected because you can't connect the wall. Max, is that clear? That's what the Gemara says. Lolan is barba. It has 4 tvachim, but mitztarfin, my mitztarfin ha'arba amot min hatzad. When it says you join the boards together, it joins together that it's enough not kosher schach from the side adjacent to the wall that will split, that will make the wall not connected anymore to the schach that's kosher on its side. Okay, now the Gemara continues. Toshma, we have another from the following Breita. In the art scroll, we are on the bottom of 17b3. If you went ahead and you use for your ceiling, for the cover of your sukkah, boards of cedar wood, very strong cedars from the tallest trees, from the strongest trees. By the way, that's why we say, you take a piece of erez by the paraduma, right? You take a piece of erez and you put it into the fire when you burn the paraduma. Good morning, Charles. Symbolic of the fact that it represents the cedar wood is the big tree. A person has to humble himself. That's why you got to go in and take that cedar wood, and you got to take also a little hyssop, a low grass. Symbolic, a person has to, big shot has to go ahead and the person shouldn't be arrogant. You have to lower yourself like a little grass. Be humble. So we have, if you use the cedar wood boards to make fiyasach, and the size of those boards were 4 tvachim. So it says the Divrei Hakol Sula. Everybody holds, this Breita says that everybody holds. Rabbi Yehuda Rameya says if you use cedar wood, but it doesn't have to be necessarily cedar wood. Any wood board that's 4 tvachim wide, that would split the sukkah in half. But ein behem arba'ah, if it does not have 4 tvachim, if it's not 4 tvachim wide, so there's the machloket. Let's say it's between 3 tefach and 4 tefach, right? That will be the size of the machloket according to this Breita. A board that's between 3 tefach wide board and 4 tefach wide board. So Rabbi Yehuda, Rameya posel, Rabbi Yehuda machshir. Rameya says it's posel, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher. Now we're on Yudchet Amar Aleph, 18a. Umoda Rabbi Meir. Even though Rabbi Meir said if you have a 4 tefach wide board, the sukkah would be invalid. But Umoda Rabbi Meir admits Shem yesh bein neser leneser kemolei neser. If between each board in the sukkah you have the size of a board. That means the Gemara is understanding you have a 4 tefach wide board, and then next to the 4 tefach wide board you have empty space, and throughout the sukkah that's how you had it. 4 tefach wide board, an empty space of 4 tefach wide, 4 tefach wide board, empty space of 4 tefach wide. And if you go ahead, if you put pesel is kosher schach. Schach is called pesel. Pesel is like the pesolet. Pesolet means the waste product, because that's what we use for schach. Schach is the waste product. Is the waste product, the straw, the hay, the straw that's, the leftover that's in the granaries after you go ahead and from the vines, from the branches, that's what you use for schach, which is in itself a very something to think about. Why, how Hashem wants us to do a mitzvah, shows you that how mitzvot are done even with things that have no material value. It's something to think about. But again, and one of the reasons we said is because it's not mekabel tumah, right? It's something that's not susceptible to contamination, these type of waste products. And maybe what we said that maybe it's a lesson to all of us that our life is that we have to create a life for ourselves that we don't receive contamination, just like the waste product of the that we use for schach. But Rameh says, if you went ahead, if you have this structure, you created a ceiling, a schach, a board of 4 tfachim, and next to it you put kosher schach 4 tfachim. Next to it a board of 4 tfachim, kosher, then next to it a schach of 4 tfachim. So you have a total of more than 7 tfachim of kosher schach in the sukkah, right? Because every 4 tfachim that you had not kosher schach, you place. Good morning, everybody. Every 4 tfachim of not kosher schach, you place kosher schach. So we say that the sukkah is kosher, right? We say that the sukkah is kosher, and fine. So that's what the Gemara says. So now the Gemara has obviously a very strong question on one opinion. Bishlama lemandiyama bein be'emsa bein menatzad ba'aba omot. The opinion that says that the only way a sukkah is broken in half, and it's considered 2 different structures, if you have the size of 4 amot of not kosher schach running across the middle, or 4 amot adjacent to the wall, which this allows you, that doesn't allow you to say that the wall turns. The quantity opinion says that you have to meet 4 amot in order to disqualify the sukkah. So therefore, therefore, in this case, the sukkah is kosher, because even though I have 4 tfachim not kosher schach, then 4 tfachim kosher schach, 4 tfachim not kosher schach, but we don't say the 4 tfachim of not kosher schach splits the sukkah, because you only have 4 tfachim of not kosher schach in one spot. You don't have 4 amot in one spot. So therefore, as long as you don't have 4 amot in one spot, the sukkah would be what? Would be kosher. But according to the opinion that says that if it's in the middle of the sukkah, a 4 tefach wide, not kosher schach would split the sukkah even in the middle. So what's going on over here that we say that you place kosher schach between every 4 tefach not kosher schach, you put adjacent to it 4 tefach of kosher schach. But at the end of the day, I have 4 tefach wide not kosher. That each 4 tefach wide should split the sukkah in half. And every time I have 4 tefach, it means that it's a disconnect of the wall on the right to the schach. So if I don't have the 4 walls, every 4 tefachim, I have another 4 tefach wide not kosher schach. I'm like, Shira, why is it kosher? The fact that it's kosher seems to indicate that the only time the sukkah will be not kosher if I have 4 amot in one spot of not kosher schach. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna, B'rei Rav Yeshua. The reason is, Hacha b'sukkah de lo have ela shmon amot misum samot askinim. We're talking about, and we'll just speak out the case, and maybe next time we will read it inside. We're talking about a sukkah that has only exactly 4 amot, 8 amot. And if it has only 8 amot, and what the reason why it's going to work over here, really the Gemara is going to say if you have 4 tefachim in the middle, it will split the sukkah in half. So why is this kosher? Because on each side of the sukkah, you're within 4 amot of the wall. The wall on the right is within 4 amot of the center of the sukkah. The wall on the left are with 4 amot of the center of the sukkah. And the center of the sukkah is kosher schach. So let's say you had 4 tefachim of kosher schach. The 4th, when you want to reach from the wall to midpoint 4 amot, right before the 4 amot mark, you had 4 tefachim of kosher schach on this side. Similarly, on the other side, when you wanted to reach the 4 amot, you had 4 tfachim of kosher schach on that side. And they had 8 tfachim total next to each other. And therefore, that makes the size of a kosher sukkah. And you have the walls moving to make it now a kosher sukkah with dofen akuma. We'll have a little more explanation on Friday. We're not going to have the class tomorrow due to Tisha B'Av. Everyone should have an easy fast. And we'll be back on Friday. And we'll go over this last answer. Want to wish everyone an easy day, easy fast. Everyone get their sneakers ready, proper sneakers, no leather. I felt bad yesterday. I was talking to somebody from the community. He doesn't have kosher shoes for Tisha B'Av. Doesn't have kosher shoes. I said, you have to have kosher. You have to get not leather. I felt bad that he didn't know. He doesn't have. Also, he said Yom Kippur, he doesn't have. So we spoke to him. He said he's going to go take care of it. So we hope he's going to educate the people. Have a great day, everybody.